Welcome back to College 101. Today's video is going to be our last career-oriented video for a little while, and we're going to be talking about how to be successful at career fairs. So if your school is anything like mine, you had a career fair every fall and every spring semester, and you might have even had some specialized career fairs. For example, we have the regular career fair and then the STEM fair focused on, STEM companies and majors. So for me, I typically went to the STEM fairs in the fall, but they do have them both times, and different kinds of companies come and recruit at both of them. For those of you who aren't familiar, a career fair is when a bunch of companies all come to your school on the same day, and they have a booth, and you can just go around and talk to them. They usually have maybe 2 or 3 people from each company, and they're accepting resumes. They might be doing interviews later in the week. They'll talk about internships and full-time positions. They might have demos, and they have tons of swag to give out. They've got pens or hats or those little cheap plastic frisbees or mugs or whatever it might be. Lots of really good things you can grab. However, I would not grab them. First piece of advice, not the most important piece of advice, but don't be the guy that walks around just getting all the free stuff. Maybe grab a pen or two here or a notebook or something small. But if you're got a bag full of goodies and it looks like you're trick-or-treating, not the most professional appearance for anyone you're talking to. However, if you're a freshman and not very many people are looking for freshmen for internships, go load up. It can be a lot of fun. Get all the free stuff and really enjoy your career fair. Now, for how to be successful and not get burned out, the first thing I'm going to say is make a game plan. So for these career fairs, they usually have a map of the area, a list of all the companies that are going to come, and if you're really lucky, they'll tell you which companies are recruiting which majors or what class standing, sophomore, junior, senior, full-time versus internship. And so you can get a short list of the ones that you're interested in that are also potentially interested in you. So I would make that short list and see how long it is. I think at my career fair, there were typically 200-ish companies, but as a chemical engineer, and then with my particular interest, there were usually maybe 30 that I wanted to talk to, if that. And actually, that's my next piece of advice is don't go for too many. Just like with an online job search, you can get really burnt out if you just go and go and go and spend all day there, because a career fair typically might be from 9 until 3. So you could be there for 6 hours on your feet, skipping your classes, handing out resumes, talking to people, waiting in lines, and it's exhausting. So what I would do is I would identify your list of companies you want to talk to, print out that number of resumes, maybe plus or minus a couple. If you identify 30, I would not recommend trying to talk to 30 companies. That's just a lot of time. You're going to get exhausted. I would target somewhere between 10 and 15. I think my first career fair, I targeted 10, and then I printed 2 extra resumes. And my goal was to hand out every single resume. And I achieved that, but let me tell you, that last resume, I went up to a company, and funnily enough, it was actually the company I work for now. So I was a sophomore, and I went up there and I said, hey, I'm Skylar Cornaby, blah, blah, blah. I did my elevator pitch, and I am going to make a video about elevator pitches in the future. We're going to take a break from career stuff for now, but keep an eye out for it. I give my elevator pitch for who I am, and it's some grumpy guy says, we only want juniors. We're not interested in sophomores. And I said, well, can you look at my resume and see what you think? He said, no, I can't take it. And I said, well, look, just take my resume. I'm leaving the career fair. You might as well just stick it in your stack. He says, fine. And I walk away, and that was it. So staying at the career fair too long isn't going to do yourself any favors. It's just a waste of your time. So if you can target 10 to 15 companies you want to talk to and have a mix of high to low profile, be reasonable about who might be interested in hiring you. If you've got a 2.5 GPA and you're a computer science major, don't go talk to Google and Facebook and Apple and all these other companies, because no offense, they're not going to hire you most likely. I don't know exactly about their hiring practices, and I didn't mean to be rude, but I know a lot of the high-profile chemical engineering companies wanted a resume of at least a 3.4. The second piece of advice, and like I said, I'm going to make a whole video about it, is have your elevator pitch prepared. An elevator pitch is a 30-second thing where you describe yourself to all these companies. It'll be the same for all of them. Usually tells them who you are, what your major is, what year you are, and then some interesting facts. It's kind of like taking the 2 or 3 most interesting bullet points from your resume and sticking them right in their face. So I would have your elevator pitch ready and also have a question to ask them. It gets them talking, keeps them involved. And so for each company, do a little bit of research. Say, what do you do with the company? Which location are you from? What are the big projects coming down the pipeline for your company as a whole, a greater entity? Things like that show you're interested. You can go look up press releases for companies, and that usually gives you a pretty good idea of some things that might be coming down the way that you can ask questions about. The next thing about career fairs is you have to dress well, and just like an interview, better to overdress than to underdress. There's going to be probably thousands of people in this room, all talking to the same companies, and again, if you're the only person in a t-shirt and jeans, or even a polo and khakis, you might not make the best impression compared to all these people in shirts and ties, or for the girls out there that are in skirts and blouses, if you show up in a t-shirt and jeans, probably not going to reflect the best. So dress professionally, dress what you would wear to work, or maybe even dress what you would wear to like a really important presentation at work to make your best impression. The next thing I'll say for a career fair to be successful is try and keep track of who you talk to. So with each company, take notes of who you talk to. If you can get a business card, an email address, a phone number, something like that, that's even better because you can follow up more. Ask them what jobs they might have open, how much they're looking to hire when they're doing interviews. Because like I talked about, different groups of companies have different goals for career fairs. The really, really big companies that have well-established internship programs are usually recruiting in the fall. They know exactly how many slots they have open, what year they want the students to be, how many interview slots they have. They have it down to a science. So if you're in the fall, you can talk to those companies. In the spring, you can talk to them, but don't have your hopes up for getting a job. In the spring, might be smaller companies, more local companies, and especially if you're like a sophomore, you don't have a lot of experience yet, or a freshman, this is the place to go for internships. You might be able to impress one of these companies, or at least be, some kind of cheap skilled labor for them with some minimal skills, minimal experience, but they're willing to take a chance on you. So that would be my advice, is try and figure out who is actually hiring for what, for how many positions in what year. On top of that, go to info sessions and apply for jobs online before the career fair, because that probably puts you on their radar or even in their database already. Around career fair time, a lot of companies will have info sessions. So if your career fair is on like a Thursday, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights, all these companies are going to have hour-long sessions where they talk about what they do, what their locations are, who they're looking for, projects they've worked on, stuff like that, to try and convince you to work for them. Because, well, as much of a career fair feels like you having to impress them, they're also trying to impress you. Because, well, yes, there are thousands or hundreds of thousands of college students all across the country who will be graduating and looking for jobs. They want the best and brightest. And so they're trying to impress as many people as they can so that the best and brightest will come talk to them. So go to these info sessions, stay after the info session and talk to the recruiters that are there. Be respectful of their time though, be brief. They may have just gotten off a plane a couple hours ago and be exhausted, so they come and do this presentation. Don't take more than 2 or 3 minutes of their time. You can give them a resume early, it's a little more personable then. You can also, again, try and get their contact information, make sure what booth they're going to be at, make sure and build that connection. Hey, I'll see you tomorrow at the career fair if they're not taking resumes. So things like that. I would also apply for jobs online, because then when you're talking to them at the info sessions or at the career fair, you can say, hey, I saw this position was open and I applied for it specifically. Are you going to be doing interviews for that soon? Or, what would your perfect candidate look like? Or things like that. You can be open about it, talk to them about it, and get on their radar. It also shows them exactly what you're interested in, because they might know, oh, you're this major, but that major could maybe fill 10 different roles, and so you can pick and choose and tell them what you're actually interested in. My last piece of career fair advice is don't get discouraged. It's actually a fairly small percentage of people, I think less than 50% for sure, who actually get their jobs or internships from career fairs. And that's just the nature of the beast. It's a place where they can meet a lot of people very, very quickly, so it's highly efficient for companies and for students. It gets you face-to-face with a lot of people, but the number of people who walk out of that career fair with an interview and then that leads to a job can be relatively low. So it doesn't work out for you, go back the next time, use it as a networking jumping off point. This is a way to build your LinkedIn network, build a personal directory of contacts you can reach out to, and people you can talk to in the future, companies you might want to work for, because if you're brand new, if you're a freshman or a sophomore, you might not even know what your major does. Kind of the funny story about my first internship with Valero is I went to a career fair, and I actually really, really wanted to talk to this company, Orbital ATK. They were an aerospace company. They had some really cool contracts coming. Well, their line was kind of long, even though I was like one of the first ones into the career fair. Some people had beat me to them. So I saw this company next door, and it said they were looking for chemical engineers. So I go talk to them, and I say, hey, what do you guys do, Valero? And they started explaining it. And in the end, they liked me, and I ended up getting an interview and a job. So sometimes just go with your gut, go talk to someone and give it a try. That's why I might say print out a couple extra resumes and go talk to someone you wouldn't have expected to, someone with a shorter line, someone you've never heard of, because especially if they have a shorter line, they might not be as attractive, so there's less competition there. And especially, again, if you're a freshman or a sophomore, getting your first internship can be the most important thing you do for your career, because after that, you've got work experience, you've got unique things about you, you've got maybe different tools and skills you've learned, you've got better stories for interviews. So really, going and talking to those companies might be the best thing you ever do, even if you've never heard of them and don't know what they do. Just be open and honest with these people. Sure, put on your best face, but still be real and be you. They have to talk to hundreds or maybe even thousands of people over the course of 2 or 3 days, and it can be a breath of fresh air to have someone walk up and just say, hey, blah, 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 this is who I am. How are you doing? Are you liking the career fair? So, again, be professional, do your best, but also treat them like humans because they are, and that can really go a long way. Thanks for watching this episode of College 101. If you're on the College Guide, let me know your career fair success or horror stories so that everyone else can benefit from them. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.